Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Being that it is now 6 p.m. on Monday, July 10th, we'll call to order the Board of Selectmen's meeting. If we could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before we start, some of you who are here in the meeting and those watching at home may notice there's a different face up here with the Board of Selectmen. We have our new Executive Secretary, Jen Setterberg, who is starting today as her first official day. So welcome, Jen.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
First item on the agenda we have as a placeholder was approval of meeting minutes. I understand we do not have meeting minutes to approve. So we're going to move on to fiscal year 17 year-end transfers.
Yeah, and Andrew, I'd like to point out this is a joint meeting with the Finance Committee to discuss these. And so the Finance Committee is sitting in the audience. If you want to make a comment, we'd ask that you come up to the microphone so everyone can be able to hear you. I will pass out the list of transfers. It is also on the screen for those of you who can see well. And then there's enough for the Finance Committee as well. So I will briefly go through areas that we're transferring from and to. And if we have any more detailed questions, feel free to stop me and we can speak about those. So for the first couple, we have leftover salary from the town administrator's salary account, obviously because the position was vacant for a portion of the year. Part of that in the first line is going to the audit services. As you know, we have a new auditor. They cost more than the previous auditor, so that is the difference for that line. We also have $5,000 for election workers. If you remember, the state required us to be open on more than just election day, so that's the $5,000 for that cost. We have a sick leave incentive that's being funded through the town administrator executive secretary line. Again, that position was vacant for a portion of the year. The sick leave incentive was increased in some of the recent collective bargaining agreements that were recently renegotiated. We have a reserve fund transfer or transfer from there for town council professional services. We were running really well, and then the past few months the bills crept up a little bit, so that is to transfer to cover those costs. The next couple are veterans benefits, and that's $9,000 coming from the Bay Path assessment. So Bay Path's assessment was less than they originally thought, so that's going to cover the benefits, which is just based on usage in the Veterans Department. The next two lines cover the director of the Veteran Services. If you recall, a new director was hired at the original number of hours that the director's position was previously. So that's the additional funds to cover that. The next ones are snow related, so we're transferring money from the Director of Planning and Economic Development. Again, that was vacant for a portion of the year. There's leftover money from sped transportation and town collector office supplies. That's all going to cover the snow and ice deficit. Next we have $25,000 from the insurances line to cover the police chief salary. Within the police department, previously the Quinn bill was not part of the base salary. It was given to the police officers separately. In the most recent agreement, the Quinn bill was built into the base salary for all the employees. However, in the transition, the budget for the Quinn bill was missed, so these transfers will cover that, and we'll be able to end the year whole for the police department. So we have the next two are $17,000 from the police cruisers and the fire electricity to cover the police lieutenant. Next we have a whole bunch of transfers from within the police department, $56,000 worth to pay for the police patrolman, detective, sergeant salaries. And then we have next $37,000, mostly from the fire department, and then a little bit from library custodian and the recreation director that wasn't filled. And those are going to cover the police department salaries as well. On the back of the page, we have $30,000 from data processing, which is our IT, going to pay down debt principal for the town hall HVAC. So if you, we spoke about this briefly in the past, that some of the debt pay down payments were not paid for in FY17. So this is to cover those costs as part of the FY17 budget. There's still going to be a couple that are not covered within the FY17 budget, so we'll be paying those probably with free cash when that gets certified. Hopefully we can do that at the October town meeting. Next is $13,500 to pay down another debt pay down for the highway wing plow. And then we have a few other miscellaneous transfers. So $850 from the assessor's budget to the assessor's senior clerk line. $15,000 from the code enforcement to the code enforcement professional services. For, again, the portion of the year the position was vacant for the planner, and we were using a consultant to do a lot of that work, so that will cover those costs. Next, small amount from the town report printing and copying to the town report overtime. So that's the person who prepares the town report. We have 30 cents from fire vehicle maintenance to fire vehicles. So one is a capital account and the other one is an expenditure account. And transfer of just over $1,800 from the harbor master boat maintenance to the harbor master overtime. And then $108 from the town collector to the parking clerk stipend. And then that's it for the general fund. In the sewer fund, we have $15,500 from the sewer debt issuance cost to sewer debt other expenses. So that's again a transfer from an expense to a debt account, which requires a vote. And water, same thing, $17,000 from debt issuance to water debt. So that was kind of a lot. If there's questions, we can go over those. If not, go ahead.
Good evening. Rollable Finance Committee. Just a question on the legal account, the transfer. Does that balance that account out, or will it still be in deficit for FY17?
Yeah, so that's more than enough, because Pam, you encumbered enough to cover June's bills, correct?
Correct, and actually this particular transfer was to pay for that special report that
Oh,
you had.
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you for reminding me. Yeah, that transfer is to cover the cost of the investigation for the excessive use of force.
Okay. And the second question is on page 2, the two principal pay downs. I understand they weren't in the 17 budget.
Right, so the cost was actually in the 16 budget, and it wasn't covered in that budget. There's still, we'll still need to cover the DPW vehicles. There's a $52,600 ban, as well as there will be $60,000 left for a fire air packs ban that will still need to be paid for.
And you're going to use free cash to
That's most likely, yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
Just through the chair. The first item, the audit, how much was that? How much more it was? That's the additional cost of the audit? And is that for just 1 year? Or
That's just 1 year.
For 1 year.
So the previous audit was roughly 26,000. The new audit was like 45,000. So yes, that is about the difference.
And on the going down a third of the way, the DPW snow removal, how much is not covered? Because I thought it was much more than
Yep. So a lot of that So that covers the full deficit. There were other line items within the DPW budget that we were able to use to cover the snow deficit. We were going to buy some other equipment at the end of the year, but we won't be able to do that, and we'll be able to fund that as part of the capital projects going forward.
And then the last question, the last part of the first page, the Quinn bill, roughly 135,000. I'm assuming it's all Quinn bill.
Yeah.
Okay. And not just salaries or anything like that, but this is the impact of the Quinn bill.
Basically, yeah.
Is there any total limit that we could transfer? I don't know how much this all adds up to. I didn't add it.
Yeah.
up.
No. So
We're below that if there is a limit.
there's no longer a limit. The law changed in November that as long as the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee both vote on it, there's no limit or no restrictions on what accounts it can go to or from.
Thank you.
Sarah Sansom. Going back to the audit services, the 19,750, does that cover the FY16 audit or the FY17 audit?
The 16 audit.
Okay, so are we looking at potentially
It's-
2 audits in FY18?
So we paid for the 15 and the 16 within the 17 budget. So the FY18 will cover the 17 audit.
Okay.
And just to follow up, is that covered in its entirety, or will we be short
So
19?
we'll have to adjust the budget in October
Okay.
because we
wouldn't
didn't know. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you have any more discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Right?
And yeah,
Yeah,
actually,
how
so
do we-
yeah, we'll let the board vote, and then also Earl, you may want to
Yeah, okay.
ask a vote from the finance committee as well.
Absolutely. So Jen, if you want to pull the board?
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolden?
Yes. Then Earl, if you want to pull your committee?
Do we need a poll vote?
It doesn't need to be.
Okay. All in favor of approving the transfers?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Unanimous.
And Mr. Chairman, if we could skip to the appointment of a new finance committee member, I think that would be appropriate since we have the finance committee here.
Absolutely.
So Lori, I'm not going to try to say your last name, Misevich, is interested in joining the finance committee. So the selectmen have an available appointment within the. We sort of agreed that we're not going to appoint more than 3 until the charter got approved. So the selectmen still have a vacancy, and Lori is requested to be on the finance committee. Earl has spoken with her as well as I have, and we're excited to have another member that's passionate about town finances, because it's hard to find some people that are passionate about that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add, we're trying to stagger the appointments. Normally, you approve 3-year appointments, but because you've already approved 2 for this year, appointments for 3 years, we'd like to have this appointment for 2 years.
Okay.
And just to follow up on Earl's question, is that something we can do within the charter? Because I didn't know if we're required, if we have 3 3-year terms, are we allowed to decrease the term?
It is, you're right.
It does say 3. Oh.
I mean, I would make a motion to do the 2 years if it's permissible as a fallback, then we would have a contingency vote for the 3 years, if that's
Yeah,
acceptable.
and if the charter does get passed, we'll have to come up with a new tiering of it anyway, so. So we can go with the 2 and we'll ask council if it's permissible. If not, we'll make it a 3-year term.
So I
we
mean,
have
that's a form of a motion.
a motion and a second?
Second.
Any
We have-
discussion?
Yeah, do we want to have her come up and introduce
Absolutely.
herself?
Sure. Lori, if you'd like to just come up and introduce yourself and say a few words, we'll complete our vote.
My name is Laurie Bisevich. I have over 20 years of experience in business, not necessarily in the financial industry, but retail, where I create, manage, oversee multi-million-dollar budgets for major corporations. So I have a lot of experience. I do have a lot of passion around spending money or not spending money, as the case may be, and wanting to ensure that we're doing the right thing for our community as a whole and not necessarily always just moving things forward.
Sure, through the chair.
Yes.
At the town meeting, you were very vocal,
I was.
and you were very impassioned, which I encourage people to be that way, but I kind of got the impression that you really didn't like being here in Webster, so that's
No,
my,
I've lived in Webster since 1989, so
Right.
had many an opportunity to move away if I didn't like the town. There are times when I don't like some of the practices that we have, which is why I want to start getting engaged and seeing if there is an opportunity for me to help either understand what drives some of the decisions or help be an influencer in some of those decisions.
thank you.
Anyone else?
If I may, through the chair, I think that's what town meetings are designed to do, is to ask questions from the citizenry, to ask a question when in doubt, you ask.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Through the chair, I wasn't questioning that.
Well, through the chair back to,
No, I was very passionate, and there were some things that I was very unhappy with the night of the town meeting, some of the things. So I think it's a fair question, do you want to be here? And that's reasonable.
And through the chair, she said it was a fair question.
through the chair, she answered it right.
So if there's no other discussion, if not, we have a motion and a second if you want to.
There's a lot of holes in the chair right
Pull,
now.
if you want to pull the board, John.
Selectman Muller?
Yes.
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Make sure you
Okay.
see the town clerk's office to get sworn in.
Thank you.
And they'll put you to work quickly because I think they have a meeting at 6:30, so. And then, Andrew, the last item that would be convenient to discuss with the Finance Committee here is the approval of the special town meeting warrant.
Absolutely.
So let me. I'll hand out copies of the warrant. We discussed several of the items on our meeting on Thursday. We had a couple additions. Pam recommended a few that I think are very appropriate. So here's copies for everyone. They're also on the screen if you can see the screen.
Good.
So the first one is an article to purchase the two properties behind the library on Niga Street, 37 and 39. I updated the article wording a little bit after speaking with council today. They recommended that we add a funding source. The way we're doing it is already going to be funded through the library construction project that's been approved. So we cited the December 24 special town meeting that was created and the ballot vote that happened in January of 2015. So just as a refresher, as the retaining wall for the project that goes along the west side of the property and a portion of the south side of the property, as designed, will no longer be sufficient. A couple of reasons. One is that when the surveyor went out there, he only surveyed to the property lines and not beyond, so the architect didn't have the correct information when he was designing it. Also, on the property line is a building, and in order to build a parking lot to the specifications that it was designed to be, we needed to go to the full property line. And in order to that, in order to do that, we would have had to pile drive like sheet metal down so the building wouldn't fall, and that was increasing the costs over the overall project. So we have kind of two options. We could, build a bigger retaining wall to adjust to some of the surveying problems that happened, or we can purchase the two properties at 37 and 39, regrade the property and redesign the parking lot a little bit. So the cost of the first option is about $500,000. For the second option is $650,000. Now, the Library Building Committee met and discussed the options. They recommend, and I strongly recommend as well, that we go with option 2 to purchase the two properties. That gives us a couple of additional benefits. One, the sight lines coming out onto Lake Street were an issue with the planning board, and with the way the building is sited, it's kind of hard to see around it and see the traffic coming up. So with the additional properties in the back, we're able to avoid that. People can enter in from Lake Street and exit out onto Negus Street and avoid that problem. Also, we won't have a really, really tall retaining wall. We'll have a more reasonable retaining wall, which will be a lot more aesthetically pleasing. Also, the two properties back there are on the older side, and eliminating them and putting in the new facility would help the overall attractiveness of the area. Also, parking is always a premium in the downtown area, so creating the additional parking spots would be a benefit for the town in general. If you can see on the screen here, the two properties that are looking at purchasing are here at 37 and 39. So it's 0.07 acres and 0.1 acres that we'll be purchasing. We have met with the property owners. We have drafted a purchase and sell agreement. We've gone back and forth. We're pretty much finalized with the terms of the agreement, and I hope to have that signed in the next, actually this week, contingent on a town meeting vote that it's approved. And the purchase price for the properties is the assessed value of the two properties, which after talking with the assessor and other people familiar with the real estate market, they feel is a very fair price for the town and also for the property owners. So the funding of the purchase, if you recall, town meeting in 2014 approved $12 million. When the contract came back after the bids were put out, it came in at roughly $11 million, and that $11 million included $1.24 million in contingencies. So the $650,000 to purchase the two properties and expand the parking lot would be able to fit within the existing contingency and within the $11 million budget. So if you look at the screen here, of the funding sources, we have $7.5 million roughly coming from the state, private donations of $1.2 million, and the remainder would be the debt exclusion from the town, which is right now penciled in at $2.3 million for a total of just over $11 million in the budget. It's still possible that it comes in under budget with the $1.2 million in contingencies. So we've spent, I think it was just under $30,000 in change orders. With this extra $650,000, we still have $500,000 plus of contingency available for the project. So that is the major point of the special town meeting to purchase those properties. Are there any questions from either the Finance Committee or the Board of Selectmen?
Mr. Chairman. Doug, the error that took place that caused us to have to redo this, there was already engineering and within the bid for the two walls.
Right.
Taking that out of that initial bid is not factored into anything here. So the bottom line is, it looks like we're looking to increase our expenditure, which will be taxed at either $500,000, that's somebody's blunder. Either $500,000 more or $650,000. And if there's no money coming back from the initial project plan, it's gonna be closer to $750,000. If you add that wasted money, there'll be a wall that's, we're paid for, that's never been built, so to speak.
Right, so I talked to the project manager about, you know, you're not gonna build a wall there if you're gonna regrade it and put it in a parking lot, the full area. She doesn't have a firm number on how much the credit would be. She said it's likely there will be a credit, but until it's a little farther in the design process, she can't give us a firm number. But yeah, the $650,000 will likely have a credit to reduce the small leg of that L
Yeah.
Retaining wall.
And also, if I understand correctly, the long leg will, since it's gonna be moved in, won't have to be built as high as,
Yeah, so it'll probably be built at about the height it was originally designed for.
that was included in the bid?
Yeah, right.
Oh, so it's not any
So
smaller?
that's roughly it.
Okay, but even going on to the back of the property? Wasn't that a graded wall?
Right, so, yeah, a portion of it was. So, because we'll have a one-way driveway, the driveway will be smaller, so
Yeah.
the
It'd be
wall
more-
can be moved in a little bit.
Right.
But that just offsets the change in grade that they didn't know about between basically the library property and where the veterans home is. So they would have had to build the retaining wall, you know, I'm not sure how much higher, but quite a bit higher than it really originally would have been. Now that they can move it in a little bit, they can lower it back down to roughly the original size.
And so there's materials and even the engineering and design, I mean, somebody made an oops.
Yeah, so.
There should be money coming back.
Yeah, I sent the contract for both the architect and the surveyor to our town council. He's reviewing those to see, you know, if there's any follow liability on either one of those professional services. And he'll review that and he'll get back to us and we'll
And
see.
even the company that did the engineering for this wall, they bid on it, they had
Yeah,
to do.
you would have thought that they would have seen the property and like, oh, there's quite a bit of
Well,
a
I think
difference
the
there.
trailer went out there, what, the end of January, early February? The trailer was out there, the engineering trail.
Yeah. So, but yeah, to your point, we're pursuing all avenues to
Lower
address
this,
the.
even though we're under budget, we're still spending money that if
May not
somebody
have
didn't
had
make
to.
a mistake, we wouldn't be spending.
Yeah, I mean, after speaking with them, they said, well, you would have, if this had been surveyed correctly 2 years ago when they were designing it, the project would have just been $500,000 more then. Not that it's not costing us any more now because we're doing it now than it would have 2 years ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the other part to this is that it's a two-part. We're fixing something and buying the houses, which is a good thing. I mean, that property in that area, there's a parking problem. I hope residents would see the benefit to purchasing those properties. But the cost of, we don't need parking within the library plan. We're paying $400,000 to make parking right to the Niga Street that we don't really need. And is there an interim plan to get an exit out onto Niga Street without creating parking spots? Or maybe talking to Noah about, you know, maybe leasing some parking spaces?
Yeah, I put a call into the Satowski schools, and I haven't heard back yet, but maybe hopefully there's an opportunity that we could either, like you said, lease some of the spaces out, or perhaps they can help fund the purchase of it.
Right,
So
or upkeep, or
Yeah.
plowing, or, you know.
yeah, something. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Question, the town meeting itself, will be requesting town meeting voters for 252,000, we're not, that's what's gonna be requested, I assume.
That's-
Everything else is gonna be taken from within the budget.
So what we're asking town meeting to approve is the purchase of real estate,
Right.
not an appropriation.
And so that purchase of real estate you listed there, I think, is roughly 252,000,
Yeah.
as opposed to the full 650, just for a point of clarification.
Yeah.
We're not asking town meeting for 650, we're asking them for the 252.
Yeah, and technically, we're not asking them for the money, we're just asking them for the ability to spend the money.
Correct. And I think at our previous meeting when this came up, everyone had agreed, someone needs to be responsible for this, whether it's a
Yeah.
lesson learned for the future or, someone taking ownership of it. It just can't be let go at that. So I'm glad it's being pursued.
Any other questions?
Just a response to that. If I read this correctly, isn't it talking about the acquisition of parcels with improvements thereon?
Yeah,
So, to me, that's an open door to the whole kit and caboodle. Improvements thereon.
I think that's the description of the real estate.
Yeah, that is what that
buildings.
means, is,
Right, the
Okay.
buildings would be considered the improvements thereon.
Okay.
yeah.
Right, town meeting is needed because we can't, finance committee, selectmen can't authorize purchase of real estate.
Exactly. So if no other questions on that article, we'll move on to Article 2. So this is requesting $55,000 from the Town Hall Stabilization Fund to remodel and upgrade the basement. So this would include installing a drop ceiling and carpet in the hallways and the offices, as well as remodeling the bathrooms. If you look here, the bathroom is extra scary. So, someone referred to it as, they've seen worse at the New York subway, but anyway. So this would,
But not much.
yeah, exactly. So in order to save some money, we have some old partitions from the high school that we could put into the bathrooms. The bathrooms, basically what we're doing is we're building a room inside the room, so basically it'd be sheetrock on the inside of the tile, and bring out the fixtures just a little bit, and the piping adjusted slightly to for that 4 inches of the wall that's coming out. But besides that, it'll be a small facelift for the downstairs, which is in desperate need of it. So, any questions on that?
And there's, how much in the 110,000?
110.
In the account now?
So the next item is requesting $25,000 from the general liability insurance line to pay for a street light audit. So we covered this a couple weeks ago, but we'll be participating with the cities or towns of Gardner, North Andover, Northbridge, and Manchester by the Sea for a joint LED streetlight purchase. We covered this before, but if we switch to LEDs, there's roughly $167,000 savings each year. We'll also save about $434,000 in kilowatts, which is equivalent to 182 tons of carbon dioxide. And it improves safety, it looks a lot better, and it makes it safer to drive on as well. So we got the price from National Grid. It's only $1 to purchase them. The retrofit cost is about $300,000. So the payback for the $300,000 is less than 2 years. So it makes a lot of sense to do this project. And the first step is to pay for the streetlight audit, which will be done over the fall. They'll go through, they'll analyze, what intersections need less or more light. They'll try to make sure that light throughout the town is consistent, so it's not, while you're driving down a road, it's not bright spot, dark spot, bright spot. They'll try to even that all out. And they may even come back and recommend that we eliminate some of our street lights because the LED lights maintain better coverage. So it might even be a cheaper cost. But that is, the next step is the audit. After that, we'll ask town meeting to provide the $300,000 to retrofit the street lights, and then we'll install them over the winter months. If there's no questions on that one, we'll move to Article 4. So this would be combining all the different electricity accounts and all the several different departments into one department. So this would make it a lot easier on the management end to make sure that we're managing our electricity, and the next article is for heating, that we're managing those appropriately. Also, we have a lot of net metering credits that we're getting from the solar field at the old landfill. So Sometimes those credits come to one big account, and we have additional credits there where we might have additional costs in another budget. So overall, it would just be easier for us in the accounting office to manage that and make sure the bills get paid appropriately. And Article 5 is the same thing, but for heating fuel instead of electricity.
Just a question. The town hall is on here, is that where the account?
Yeah, that is
Going into-
rather than town hall, it's gonna be called public buildings.
Okay, so it'll
Yeah.
reside there.
So these are going into the account that already includes the town hall?
Yep. And those are the exact budgets that were approved, so. Or,
Other than the DPW?
yeah, because they have actually the street light electricity account will remain in the DPW. So Article 6 is an article to create a PEG access and cable related fund. So that's one of the recommendations from the audit, is that we create this fund to account for the monies within PEG access. So right now, basically, we're doing the same thing, but we need a town meeting vote to officially approve it. So, Pam, anything to add to that? I mean, it's really just what we're doing, but at an official
It's just not
town
officially,
meeting vote.
right. DOR put out an IGR, maybe a little over a year ago now, that requires town meeting to actually adopt
Yeah.
that section.
So that's all the articles. Any questions from anyone?
Through the chair again, assuming there's no citizens?
There weren't any.
So we're looking for a motion to close the warrant and then approve the warrant.
So
Yes.
moved.
as
Yes, we
written.
are.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, Jen, would you poll the board?
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Book?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Gilda?
Yes. All right, and then going back into order would be the senior center staff presentation.
Finance Committee, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes.
Could we be excused to reconvene?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Hi, Jean.
So, following our recent tradition, where we're reviewing the one or two departments each month, Council on Aging is our department this month. So, Jean's here to walk us through some of the work she's been doing. So, Jean, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, I just thought as these things came up, I would use them to say what I'm gonna say, and some people told me not to talk too much, so I'll be good. Okay.
That wasn't me, by the way.
No, it wasn't, but most people know. Our personnel is myself, Val, and Kristen. The three of us kind of run the show with some support from the volunteers. We couldn't do it without the various volunteers we have, which is always use more help, as I think we all know. You can never have enough help. Okay. And then the next is the members of the Council on Aging, which help. Two of them are here tonight. And they support us as best anybody can support anybody. So they advise us with different things that they would like to see us do. And that's their role. And we're just getting reestablished. They just are working on rewriting their bylaws, which is a big accomplishment for them right now. So that's kind of nice. Then we have senior center activities. This is what we do there. We eat a lot over there. That is our big thing. If you have any questions on any of these stats, I'd be glad to answer them. But
So, do you mind explaining what pitch is?
pitch is like high-low jack game. Do you know high-low jack game?
No. Card game.
It's a
I
card
know
game.
pit.
It's a card game. All I know about pitch is every now and then they say, Gene, the cards are worn out, could you get me new ones? And that's what I know about pitch. That's all I know. I don't play it, I don't like, they love it. They love it. We have to, when we do anything, we have to end up being, pitch has to happen on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And on Thursdays, they do 13-card pitch. And all I could think of is all those cards in your hand. I don't know how they do it, but they do. But it's fun, that's what it is. So you're welcome to come over anytime. It's progressive pitch, so anybody can just sit in and they'll teach you.
And we're not gambling.
You're not gambling.
And I think
but
it should be a requirement for our town administrator to learn how to play pitch.
I thought I just had to call bingo.
Bingo, you gotta call, somebody's gotta come over and call bingo. We've got a member of the police department, but we'll get more. They love him, by the way. They love Joe. Anyway, so that's what we do. So anything else you need to? Yes?
Just to point out that you have adopted several new programs
Oh, we
this year.
have. We have a new dance program. 40 Arroyo is the lady's name. It's Fortunata Arroyo, actually. I've discovered when we lost one of the girls, to try to find someone that you can get to come in to offer these kinds of things is very, very difficult. There's not a lot of them out there, and the ones that are out there like where they are. So we're very fortunate to have 40. They love her. She does 4 classes a week with us, and she's thinking on doing one more, but we haven't arrived at a date yet on that one. And you're all more than welcome to come over and take the class. The Wednesday morning exercise class, that was a bunch of the former dippers that were at the other building, and they wanted to have a little exercise class on their own. And they've signed they do that a little bit on Wednesdays. The floral arrangement class is a nice one. The lady comes in and she brings in all these plants and all kinds of things, and they make some gorgeous arrangements. Okay, I've gone too fast.
Sorry.
Linda Littleton offers some painting classes. She's been doing that with us for a couple of years. We offer manicures from Bay Path, and the gentlemen get their nails done too, so feel free to come over. And we offer coffee and donuts.
It is
So-
manicure.
The manicure, coffee, and donuts.
Yeah.
And they all say to me, if you did a pedicure, I'd come, but we don't do pedicures, we only do manicures. We have our flu clinic through the town. We have our own people come in, and some of the town employees come in too, so that's something we work with the town on. We have a lady comes in once in a while. We have Cheryl come in and do an art class. She has a different style than Linda has, so it's kind of a nice conflicting, kind of thing. Fraud Squad players. They come in and do a program that acts out scams that might be out there for our seniors, and they actually act them out. They bring in the audience to participate also. So it's kind of a neat thing. It's really, they enjoyed that very much. Soup Social is a new program. Christopher Heights said they wanted to do something and come over. They come over once a month, and they just started this. They bring soup for free. They bring the soup, and we tell everybody, bring your own sandwich. So it's kind of neat. It's fun. They have a good time with that. Joe McKenna does St. Patrick's Day. I got him to do a St. Patrick's Day party because I thought McKenna must be Irish, and it's not. He's Scotch. But he came and did it anyway. He's a good egg. And he does our cookout. We just did our cookout here in the parking lot. We cook out and we eat in, and he does that. He's a great guy. And we do our Christmas party here at the senior center. And that's it. Am I going too fast or not fast enough? Okay. Elder Bus, we just had one today. They went to Cracker Barrel. Went to Cracker Barrel for breakfast. They went to Ocean State Job Lot to shop, and then they came back. And they love those trips, little trips like that. Taxes are taxes. They offer the taxes. The numbers went down a little bit this year because they didn't offer us a lot of hours that they had offered us in the past. So the numbers were down a little bit this year. The March of Meals breakfast was Tri-Valley doing a fundraiser. So we did pancake breakfast over there, which was kind of nice. Ryan does his Valentine's Day party every year. Valentine's Day the Fat Man way. I hope to get him to do that for next year. And Tri-Valley lunches, that's what we do. We serve lunch. And we've served a lot of lunches. I didn't realize how many lunches we served till I looked at these figures. 7,000 people came through there this past year and had lunch.
Excuse me, why the increase?
Well, we're now open 5 days a week, and 4 of them we serve lunch, which we didn't before. One of the things was kind of interesting when we were going to be open on Fridays was they weren't sure about giving me a hot lunch to serve, because we have big numbers here, and they were afraid it would affect some of the other senior centers, because they go everywhere. They're not privy to just Webster. Webster people can go to Dudley, can go to Charlton, can go where they want, as can anyone else come in here. And we offer a soup sandwich lunch on Friday. They love that soup sandwich lunch. They really do.
I would
Yeah,
say
he's
it.
been in a couple times for soup sandwich lunch, so.
$3.
3, can't go wrong. And it's quite good. It is, it's good. Am I right? One of our people said the other day when we had the roast beef sandwich, we have a roast beef sandwich, he said, if you went to Point Breeze, it'd be $35. So it must be true. And we have an options counselor. We started that in 2015. There was a need for people to talk to people if they need some assistance. And I've got someone through Tri-Valley comes in and talks to them about insurance, housing, whatever they need. And it's a need, big need. We wish we had more people. And the other activities are 25 to 30 varies when we have ice cream social, dessert social, you name it, we have it, and it's a good thing. And then the senior cruise, which is what we do at the beach, we have about 95 people, and that's coming up, so get ready for that.
I'm ready.
Mr. Becker. And these are the stats, which I was really
Yeah.
kind of impressed.
Yeah, so this is the number of actual activities offered, and the next slide is participants in those activities. So we went from 16 to, I think it's 23.
Yeah,
And then,
unbelievable.
yeah, this is a little bit harder to read, so about 6,000 to about 11,000, something.
Yeah, so I come up with these different things, and I'll say to the girls, what do you think, should we try it? And we try it, and it sort of flies, but we never get rid of it. We add one more thing. That's why we've come up with all the various things, and I think it works out myself. And these, did you get the pictures up there?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Got
that's
it.
all right. These are some of our various things that we put up. And we have Elderbus. We use Elderbus quite a bit. Elderbus is a big deal for us. When we couldn't get a full bus trip for anything, that was really hard. We just had our first bus trip that went to Maine for lobster. 40 people on a bus. We were excited. That was a big deal for us. It was really a big deal. And that worked out good. Fuel assistance, we still offer that, and that's open to anyone in town. That they come in from Worcester, they use our offices and then help out with their fuel assistance. And they call our thing the Tri-Valley Lunch Club. That's what we're called. Those of us that serve those lunches, we're called a Tri-Valley Lunch Club. And it's nice. It is. And we have our July menu.
Chicken
And-
fajitas tomorrow?
Pardon
Oh, no,
me?
Sorry.
No,
Roast beef.
tomorrow's roast
So-
beef. It's cold. It's a cold lunch tomorrow. Cold roast beef lunch tomorrow. It's nice. It really is. I don't know. They like it. Some of them do. And there's some that don't. And I tell people if they want to come in and meet with their friends, they're more than welcome to come in and even bring their own lunch if they don't like ours. I really don't care. And they can come in and visit with various people and do whatever they want. And then we have Navicare coming in from Fallon. That's for the lower income insurance. And she's gonna go in and talk if anybody has any questions. That happens to be tomorrow. Ice cream social the end of the week. Blood pressure screening for Webster Manor. The ice cream social blood pressure screening is from Webster Manor. They offer those services to us. And we're gonna do a sing-along on Friday, 50s, 60s music on Friday. We'll see how that goes. You're all welcome to come over and sing along. And we've got the pitch, the things we talked about, blood pressure clinic, and the bingo. Bingo's a big deal, real big deal. And there's our Officer Reed calling a bingo game. So, and the Vine to Wine foliage, I like the name. I think it'll be good. Vine and wine. Personally, I think that would be quite nice. So I hope you all want to go. Come on and sign up. And here's our activities calendar, and if anybody's got any questions. Nothing? Nothing?
Thank you for the passion that you bring to this.
Just one, if I may, through the chair. Gene, remember we talked about maybe a year or maybe two ago already, time
What's that?
flies. Social Security, they wouldn't,
I've
no
tried.
satellite?
I talked to Congressman McGovern. We had a lady come out from Springfield, the main office in Springfield. She came out and did a little bit of a presentation. I was very disappointed on the amount of people that showed up.
Oh,
I had one gentleman show up that worked out good for him. He was having trouble getting his death benefit from his wife. So that worked for him. But there's just no way that you can get that. Unfortunately, a lot of things, they say, well, they can do it online. You can do a lot of things online, but a lot of things you can't. You can get a new Social Security card online. You can do some other things online. But I know from personal experience, you can't work with them to get your death benefits. You have to talk to them personally. You can't do that online. So that's, for our age group of people at a senior center, that's what they need. That's what they really need. So it's kind of tough. Talked about that. It doesn't look promising, but it's federal. I mean, you know, we have trouble getting local things regionalized. I don't think a federal thing would work. But I never give up on it. Every time I see, I always say, hello, we could use that. We could use that. One other thing, like I say about the volunteers, and I can't speak highly enough of them, they're great. Anytime you guys feel like coming over, and we'll put an apron on, you can work and call a bingo game, anything. This newsletter, we've only had not quite a year yet. This is a new newsletter that I think you've all seen it. And we used to use just plain old colored paper. And we now use this, and we have ads in it. So I think it's kind of a nice addition. And I think that's all I got.
Oh, thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Jean.
Great job.
Thank you.
And, yeah, through the chair, just a plug for the senior cruise, August 21st?
August 21st. August 21st, you guys.
August 21st.
You're gonna be there? You got the book a cruise too. Yeah, so we've got
That's
someone
August
working on. You got it all, you're good. But August 21st, and I think it'll be fun. I think it always is. It's always a ball.
Make sure it's on the calendar.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jean.
Do you want me to see the other people?
Yeah, if you want to go see if
Yeah,
if they have a question.
Thanks a lot. Anytime you want to call.
Thank you.
Yeah, Andrew, since Deputy Chief Shaw is here, do you mind if we
Okay,
do that
sure.
one, since
Yeah,
we're going all out of
absolutely.
order tonight, so.
Sure. So yeah, Deputy Chief Michael Shaw discussing National Night Out, along with Chief Beck.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we have our National Night Out scheduled for August 1st from 5 to 8 down the beach. This has been, we've been doing this for about the 20 years that I've been here, and it's a nationwide event held on the first Tuesday of August. It starts out and is primarily a national night out against crime, so it's really geared around public safety, police. We've kind of taken it on a different spin here in Webster. We've included fire and EMS for the last few years. This year, as you know, when you've gone to the event in the past few years, it's grown substantially. So we really make it a community-oriented event. So this year, we're going to have at least, I think, 15 vendors ranging from the Sheriff's Department down here, the services they provide. The District Attorney's Office will be there, the Reconciliation House, some local groups here. It's funny that Jean mentioned about the group that comes and does plays for the seniors. There's going to be a group there to warn seniors about some of the scams that go on and to present them with information. Second Chance Animal Shelter will be there, Guardian Self-Defense, a whole bunch of vendors coming. Along with, we're going to have a rock wall this year. Wynn Residential, again, has really stepped up to the plate. Clowns. We have a bunch of raffle prizes that we're giving away. You know, Pawtucket Red Sox tickets, Wachusett ski passes, all kinds of things. We're going to have a donut eating contest. It was not my idea, but I'm probably going to be forced to do it. Yeah, and there'll be prizes for that. AJ from Point Breeze has stepped up huge. We're expecting about 600 people this year. Last year we had about 500 to 600, so it seems to get bigger every year. So we're expecting around 600. Usually there isn't a rain date with this event. But this year, given all the attractions that we have the rock wall, we're gonna have a big inflatable fire slide, a photo booth. We are going to, I talked to Kenny about it, and just do it the following day, weather permitting, as long as that's acceptable. You know, the cost has been, you know, we've had some donations from Webster 5, Hometown Bank. Place Motors has gotten involved this year, great to see them. Some of the other local businesses here in town, given us donations in you know, cases of water, hoodsie cups, things like that, all kinds of great stuff. So it's actually gonna be really looking forward to it. The committee that's been involved has been putting a lot of work, and we started planning this probably back in March or April. So it's really gonna be a good event. We're looking forward to it. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. I hope to see you all there. Maybe go on the rock wall.
Hope to see a certain dinosaur there as well.
There will be the DJ from WSRS will be there. There may be someone dressed up in a T-Rex outfit, and it may go on the rock wall. I don't know. Have to see if he's available.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Put that in my calendar.
All right, then, next item would be the 106 Douglas Road,
Yeah.
new license request.
All right, so this is a request for the propane license. What they have now at the campground is there's lots of different, each unit has their own propane tank, so when you add those all up in the aggregate, it reaches a certain threshold where they need an additional permit. So that's what this permit is. Fire Chief Hickey recommends approving it. This is actually going to be happening to the other campground, so next month we're going to have Indian Ranch. They'll be doing the same permit. So the owner is actually out of town, so he couldn't be here, but the chief recommends approving it, and so do I.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Henry?
Yes. Town administrators report.
So thank you, Andrew. First off, I want to thank everyone that was involved in the fireworks display on Saturday, July 1st. It was a great show. Kenny worked nonstop that day. It was unbelievable. When I saw him, I was like, I've never seen Kenny look like that. I was worried he was going to pass out, but it was a long day for him, and I appreciate all the hard work that he put in, as well as the fire department, the police department was fantastic as well. The second item on the list is a community compact signing. So if you remember, we applied to the state to sign for their assistance in 3 different areas. The DOR audit, an open space and recreation plan update, and not remembering the third. But they want to come and sign, have a ceremony for the signing of that. I just heard today that the Lieutenant Governor is available on Thursday at 12:30. So not much notice, but if we can make it, I'll let the Lieutenant Governor know, and we'll have a signing ceremony in the rotunda downstairs. So is that looking like it's a possibility for? Okay.
I'll arrange things.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Just a reminder, summer reading is underway at the library. We also have the market and concert series on Wednesdays from 5 to 8 p.m. The first one was this past Wednesday. It was a great turnout. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And this week they actually have 11 vendors coming, rather than, I think they only had 5 or 6 last time. Again, we are having a special town meeting July 31st, and National Night Out is August 1st. So that'll be a busy week. For covering public health and safety, as you know, Memorial Beach was filled to max capacity on July 4th, so we actually had to start turning people away. Kenny spoke with the beach director and the lifeguards that's on the site, and there's a concern that with so many people there, it would be difficult to be able to watch everyone in the water, and also to coordinate an effective response if something were to happen at the beach. So it was a busy day there, and I appreciate Kenny making the call to keep everyone safe there. And we'll keep a close eye on it and make sure that in the future, the next few weekends, that we'll have enough people on staff to accommodate the big crowds that we've been getting lately. Also, we have a handicap accessible beach mat that we got through a grant from the state, so that's actually being delivered tomorrow. So Kenny, I need to talk to you sometime about putting that in. And then as far as we have the next item, top locations for emergency response and specifically police response. I was figuring we could talk about that when we go over the landlord bylaw, so I'll hold off on that. And just to make you aware, we had 13 arrests that were made at the end of June. And they had an outstanding warrant kind of round up. They had a directed patrol go out and look for those people that had outstanding warrants, and they were able to find and arrest 13 of them. So on finances, we approved the budget transfers earlier. We received a draft audit from the auditor this past weekend. I actually haven't even had a chance to read it yet, so I'll meet with the finance team here in Town Hall. We'll review it. We'll get our comments back to the auditor, and we'll be on the next agenda to discuss in detail. We also got the state conference committee budget from Representative McKenna sent it to us. So within the conference committee, there is $50,000 for Thompson Road to upgrade the water main there. However, our state aid is down by about $33,000. So we'll see what the governor ends up actually signing, but we may have to make some adjustments later in the year. For economic development, Big Lots is having their grand opening on Friday at 8:30 a.m. So all the selectmen are invited to that. We also have a couple new businesses that are opening up on Main Street. There's going to be an Asian market and an escape game room. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but it's basically a game where you go in and you have to escape out of the room and you have answer these trivia questions. And it's going to be in the old Cellar Pub. So,
Glad it wasn't going to be the cell block in the police station.
no, some of them, no. We hope that there is no correlation between the two. Let's see here. Oh, McDonald's is also getting a facelift over the next few weeks. And the CME weekly status report passed along as well. The infrastructure, Davis Street was completed this past week. They installed the landscaping on Friday. For the water treatment plant, it's going out to bid this month. And Ty and Bond are working on the updated capital plan where they're going to prioritize the mains that are going to need to be cleaned and lined or potentially replaced. We spoke with Gene tonight. Our next meeting we'll talk with the planner and the town collector. And then for Clean and Beautiful, 34 East Main is going to be torn down tomorrow. That's the building that was burned out about a couple months ago, maybe a month ago. And we'll discuss the nuisance property slumlord bylaw in a few minutes. And last of all, we're collecting the citizen surveys, and we'll close those on July 15th, and we'll have a report next meeting on the results of that. Any questions on any of those items?
If not, do we have a motion to
Motion to
approve?
accept.
Second?
Motion and second, any discussion?
Just a couple questions,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. On the Memorial Beach, I noticed there are a lot of those new, the expandable kind of sun coverings
Yeah, the
that you can
pop-up.
buy. I assume that the lifeguards are kind of controlling that, so they're not blocking the lifeguard views or keeping them away. It was amazing how many have now popped up, which is
Yeah.
great, I mean, keeping the sun off of people, but, so lifeguards will, we don't need another written rule, but
Right. That's they have the authority to ask people to do those.
and then on
Kenny
the,
can let them know that. Yeah.
on the audit, is the DOR, they're doing a review too, I thought?
Right, so we will be meeting, all the finance team members here. We'll meet with the auditor and the DOR the next little bit.
Thank you.
If there's no other further discussion, Jen, if you pull the board?
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolden?
Yes. Moving on. We've got the Selectmen Code of Conduct policy discussion. Did we want to go through this?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just to make mention, I know this was handed out a couple meetings ago, and, you know, we didn't have a chance at that point to go through it. Hopefully, people have had a chance to go through it. I do have one suggested change in here. It's on page 2. I realize that there's a typo there on page 2, under number 3H, as in Henry, at the very bottom of the page 2, where it talks about be forthright in proving. That should be providing, that's all. Be forthright in providing information to members. And maybe just a little bit of background. You know, I was asked recently, why are you bringing this up? And it's something that I had seen. I'm a trustee at a tennis club in Holden, and I happened to look at their website, and I was looking at their hours of operations, and I happened to come across the Holden Select Board Code of Conduct, and I read through it, and I thought it was a great thing to have. And I thought, from the standpoint of no better place to start than at the top. You know, we are the selectmen for the town, and, you know, I think we set the tone at the top, and this is a good way to, for me, you know, coming across to set the tone at the top. And I would hope that, one, we would look to approve this tonight, and two, that it could be used, or something similar could be used. For instance, I know the Personal Advisory Committee is doing work on policies and whatnot, and I think we did this where I previously worked, and I think it's just a very good thing from a, I won't say a corporate code of conduct, but it's really a municipal code of conduct. It's a good thing to have. So.
Yeah, I think last time we spoke about this should be applied to employees as well. So the personnel board will work on putting those into our policies that we're adopting.
And it is, you know, it's pretty much, I would use the term mom and apple pie, mom and apple pie. It's pretty basic. It's things that we all do now, and just as a reminder of, you know, how we should conduct ourselves, both with each other, you know, as a group, with the public, and so forth. So.
Do we have a motion to approve the draft
So moved.
policy? Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's motion and second. Any discussion?
Just as a point of discussion, it is a two-way street, as you mentioned. I don't have a problem with it. Sometimes we agree to disagree, or either way. That's called democracy, too. So, as they say, I don't know. But also, you have a couple of things here that I don't mind any of these, and with no intent of playing politics as I see it and so forth. We do have our own rules, and the state rules also, according to the charter and open meeting law and so forth and so on.
Absolutely.
And as far as we know, as best I understand, the chairman is the moderator, so to speak, of the board.
Correct.
Our job is for the health and welfare of all the citizenry of the town of Webster, and I firmly believe in that too. Sometime I have found, whether it be any of us on this board, that maybe we don't go to one or two other, because we can't, number one, but like we just had a little situation. I went directly to town administrator, and I thought that was what I should do without alerting the rest of the board members at that particular time, and then let him take it from there. It's called passing the buck, too. That's a nice way to say it. But also, we got to be careful, too, as not to encroach or infringe on any of our constitutional rights, just as regular people. I'm a regular guy, sometime. But I don't think any hollering or screaming. I did that years ago. I'm over that now. But the chairman would have that right, regardless of who sits in the middle chair. I think a little professionalism on all of our behalf. Sometimes it gets a little bit hairy every once in a while, but actually it's not a bad job, and I think we do a pretty good job as a board trying to offer all of our opinions, whether we agree or we don't agree, or we agree to disagree.
Correct.
And that's okay. But point taken, Mr. Vice Chair. It is something, but again, as I think our administrator will agree with, and I know you're aware of, we got to get the personnel board together to really coordinate this. It's a good start, don't get me wrong, but we have to do townwide, we have to do something, not me or any of us individually, but through the administrator and the board, maybe to sing Kumbaya, I don't know, but
Yeah, as far as the personnel policies, the Personnel Advisory Board has been meeting. We have a draft that we reviewed and actually planning on the next couple of months, actually.
Right.
Probably in August to bring up before the Selectmen.
because there was a lot of things, if I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, there was a lot of things that the town was lacking, period. And actually, it was a little bit embarrassing, and maybe we can get it all together very shortly. How's that? Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion?
Again, I think through the chair, to me, this would make sense because if we're asking our employees to abide by a certain code of conduct, it's important for the tone at the top, again, the selectmen, to have, you know, an appropriate code of conduct that we could then, you know, call upon our employees and even citizens to understand what they are and abide by them.
Absolutely. If there's no other discussion, if Jen, if you could pull the board?
Selectman Nolan?
Yes.
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Discussion on municipal aggregation.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have had people knock on your doors trying to get you to sign up with a different municipal aggregator, or not electricity aggregator. But we're allowed to do that as a municipality, so we can take the residential electricity load and take that and bid it out as a whole and get a better pricing than what residents might get through the National Grid basic rate. So that's something that a lot of other communities in the state are doing, and it's actually not too much work on our part, and I think we should go forward with it. Basically, if you want to look at the slides, we're able to take those. Customers can opt out of the program, so if they already signed up with a different aggregator, or if they just want to stay with National Grid because they think that rates on National Grid might drop below whatever the town might get as a price, they're welcome to do that. What the process is, the town would have to go to town meeting and ask town meeting to approve us to start this process. Once the process is started, we hire a contractor. Contractor walks us through the process. They develop the plan, they submit it to DOER, and then they are the ones that send out mailings to all the town residents and inform them of what the program is, what the price is, and they are also the ones that bid out the electricity to the market and get us the best rate possible. So if you can see on here, which you probably cannot, the current National Grid rate is 9.43 cents per kilowatt. The town of Grafton just bid theirs out in February, and they got 9.1 cents per kilowatt. So right now we're on the summer rate. The summer rate is almost always cheaper than the winter rate. So right now it's 9.4. Over the winter, it was 9.8. And so if you look at what that is over time, the average household uses about 903 kilowatt hours. So that comes to an annual savings of $35. Not that that's a ton of money, but we are increasing rates on the water and sewer, so this is a way to save some money for town residents on another utility and provide a service to town residents. Sutton also did this recently, and they got a I think it was 4 cents per kilowatt. They have a different load than other communities. We have kind of a lot of, we're bigger than Sutton, so I think we would probably be more like the Grafton range of 9.1. So I don't know if there's any specific question about this, but if the board's okay with it, for the October town meeting, I'll prep this so we'll be able to vote at that meeting, and we'll do a little bit of residential outreach and education campaign before the meeting so people understand what this is before they vote on it.
Absolutely. Seems like a great way to save some money.
Yeah, and what I want to make sure is that, you know, if we get 9.1 and then National Grid for some reason comes back next summer with like 8.8, we'd put on our website or Facebook or whatever, just telling everybody, it would actually be cheaper to go to National Grid, so now's a good time to opt out. So I want to
Right.
reduce the risk for everyone, and they can opt out whenever. So although if you do opt out, you cannot opt back in.
Just a question through the chair. So the opt-out is a little bit curious. So a town meeting, if they approve this, they can then force all residents to become a part of this, and then they have to opt out, which is a little bit unusual.
Right,
Seems
yeah.
a little undemocratic, but.
Well, that's why there's the town meeting vote. But yeah, they're automatically enrolled in it. Everyone gets mailed a postcard, and basically you check, yes, I want to enroll, or no, I don't.
So it's not,
They are automatically, but if you do not return that card with an I want to opt out, you'll stay in the program.
it is,
Right.
okay. So
I
it
think
is
the
an
town of
opt-out.
I'm sorry,
Go right ahead.
through the chair and also the vice chair, town of Charlton just mailed something out not too long ago.
Yeah, Oxford is in the middle of the process right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure like many of you,
Sorry.
received all the phone calls. We get them every day about changing half of my bill.
Right.
Just the
Yes.
generation component, it's
Right,
not the
yeah,
distribution.
yeah.
Right,
that's
and so, good point, so it is just the generation, so you will still receive your National Grid bill, nothing like that changes, you still only get the one bill, it just will have a different generator.
And the only other question is, these are 6-month rates. Most now are a year, 12 months, even some would offer 18 months.
Yeah, so we're able to enter into whatever term we wish, the selectmen actually make that decision, so we'll get a price for 1, 2, or 3 years.
But it would not be monthly.
No.
Thank you.
And do you need a motion or a vote on this, or no?
I do not, so if the consensus I feel is moving forward, and we can ask town meeting if they want to do it or not, so.
Discussion on landlord bylaw.
All right, so in your packet was a draft landlord bylaw that I took from a couple different sources, one the town of Framingham and another community out in California. So the purpose was to create a process or make it clear what the process is for people who have nuisances or who have continual drug or other criminal activities at their rental properties or even at their residential properties. I sent this to our attorney. His first concern was like, you can do most of this without a bylaw. A lot of these things are either in the state law or the state sanitary code. And through our discussion, it said you may want to do it just to like send a message or to clarify what the town process will be. So we can approach it either way, either have a specific bylaw for the town, or we can just have a process that we know we're going to follow when we have a nuisance property come up, and we'll have the state laws to justify those actions. So if we, someone has a boarded up house that needs to be condemned, we'll already have it written out through what MGLs are appropriate to move forward to closing or removing that nuisance. So I don't know do you want to review the bylaw in detail? I don't know if you've had a chance to review it. I'll leave that open to the board.
Mr. Chairman, just a question for Doug. Are there other towns, I like the idea of having everything concise in one bylaw, because there's a myriad of so many different laws and regulations. Having it in one, I think, is a great thing to do. Are there any other towns who have this? Because we don't want to go through, a fight in the courts to say, hey,
Yeah,
it's illegal
so
to do this.
a lot of it's modeled off of Framingham, and so our attorney is contacting their attorney to see when it went through the AG's review, what comments did they have? He did have some concerns specifically about number 12. So this is one that I actually just threw in because I kind of liked it, but during a 12-month rolling period, if we have an excessive response to a certain address, we could start charging them for that. Our attorney was concerned, if there might be a legitimate reason for them to be responding all the time. His was like if they had a medical condition that needed a response. So we could potentially change that to a police response or take it out altogether. Although it was my favorite part.
So again, through the chair, so this would be something that if we agreed, it would obviously have to go to town meeting.
Yes.
Correct.
And then seek the approval of town meeting.
Do we want to vote on this tonight, or do we want to, would the board like to put this on our next agenda for a vote?
So I'll recommend that we'll wait to hear back from our attorney with
Counsel?
Framingham, see if
Okay.
they have any comments. I just wanted to get a feel from the board. Is this what you were looking for as far as a bylaw? Is there something else you want added onto this?
Yeah, I know in the past, Selectman Dargevich has been a very big proponent of the nuisance by property bylaws and whatnot. So I'm sure he'll have some input on this.
And again, through the chair, I've read it, I like what you have, I think you were gonna supplement it, when this originally came up, I was looking to see a list of the
Yeah.
top 20 or so.
Yeah, so here you go.
Okay, thank you.
So here's a list of addresses that the police respond to the most. Our system actually makes it very, very difficult to get here's the top 20. What you'd have to do is go to each address and see how many times they responded to that, which is not a good use of time. But Deputy Chief Shaw met with some of the patrolmen and the sergeants, and they came up with this list of areas that they feel they go to the most. So a lot of these you're probably familiar with, know what they are. Yeah. And not all of these are obviously residential units or even rental units. I was hoping with the facelift to McDonald's, maybe we could drop off the list.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike, is there anything you want to add to the list?
No, just to explain, like McDonald's, the issue, they have a lot of issues there with the kids at night. They have free Wi-Fi, people go there and they just hang out. I know in years past, I've tried, it was an issue a couple of years ago, I reached out to the owners to try to meet with them, to at least try to work something out, and they were just unresponsive. There's another one there, like it's hard, like Mr. Wilson said, it's tough with the software we have, I can't just pull out which are the top 20 call addresses. So that could change. There may be some that come up. Those are the ones when I spoke to some of the patrol officers and sergeants. Those are the big numbers, and I checked and verified that we did go there a lot. Again, for fire or EMS, police, and fire. Those are these calls.
Yeah, and actually McDonald's, I'll talk to you after, but because they're in the process of getting that permit, so maybe we can have a conversation with them.
Great.
I think my attempt here was to, if there are particular properties and particular landlords that, were responsible for those properties that were generating a lot of these calls, and I think the genesis of my concern was the apparent beating death of the individual down in the hub. And are there more calls like that from whether it's that residence or other residents that are generating a lot of the activity? So,
Right, then, if there's no other discussion, we'll move on to Independent Investigators Report dated May 19th, 2017.
So at our last meeting, the board took a vote to ask the DA's office if they would come in and investigate and try to find out who sent the email. I contacted them and they declined to take that up. They said it wasn't a crime, so they can't really investigate it. did talk with the investigator who did the report. He said it's possible that they could hire a forensic computer person to come in and look at it and try to find who sent the original email. There are some issues with that. I talked to Greg about this several times about what's the likelihood of being actually able to find who sent the email. I'm not an expert on it, but Greg has looked into it. He traced back the email address, and it goes to a server in Norway. And in order to find out who actually sent the email, it might have to do something like subpoena Norway to get the address and information of whoever created that account, because it came from a business or an email account that was Norwegian based. So I don't know what else you want to discuss regarding the investigation.
Through the chair, to me, it's important to find out who sent the email. I'd like to, if the DA is not going to pick it up, to at least ask Billingsgate, the firm that did the investigation, to give us an idea of what they could do. So it would be beyond, obviously, talking with Greg.
Yeah.
What they could do without spending any money now, because I know we've spent almost $20,000 on this. What they could do, and then give us an idea if it's something we want to then do. Because the most disturbing part, and I have the report here, is that the investigators believe the author of the emails is a fictitious name fabricated, and I'm just reading this, either by a Webster police officer or a subject close to a department member. The email was a guise to have an investigation conducted, thereby placing blame on 3 officers named within in an attempt to possibly further others' careers. That's just terribly disturbing. And that's coming from the independent investigator. So to me, that was the number one reason I guess I wanted to see this back on the agenda tonight. So hopefully, if the board agrees, we can at least, and I know Mr. Miller had offered up his computer, if the DA doesn't want to do it, maybe Billingsgate can give an idea of what it would cost if
I may, Mr., through the chair to the vice chair. Well, they're not going to take the computer out of my building. They can sit there and they can analyze it, turn it upside down as long as it works the way it did before, because I only have one. And I don't have a problem with that. Again, it's not going to leave that particular area, my office, if you want to call it that.
And we had talked about this
Yeah.
at the last meeting, and you had agreed, and I thank you
And
for agreeing.
and I second your motion,
Yep.
if I remember correctly. But I didn't think the DA would get involved, but
Yeah, I
be
guess
that as it may.
I had hoped that they would, given the gravity of the situation when you're having someone who I would think has filed a false police report and a false allegation, you have to follow up on those allegations. The second reason to put it on the report was it provides, I think, a very good, I will say a very bad, maybe, example of what happens if we don't follow the chain of command. This is not an intention at all to discuss anything as far as if any penalties, punishments at the police department, if there are to be any, about this matter. It's really a lesson, I think, for all of us that should something like this happen again, should someone come to a selectman and say, hey, I have this concern, we as a group, we as individuals, selectmen, need to tell that, in this case, it was a sergeant. Sergeant, go talk to your lieutenant. And if you don't get satisfaction, then go talk to the chief. Sergeant, if you don't get satisfaction with the chief, then go talk to the town administrator. And if you don't get satisfaction with the town administrator, talk to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. And Mr. Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, if it should be at that point, I think, brought to the full board. That's the chain of command. That is one of the items that's in the code of conduct. And I think had we had that happen in this case, based on what I've read and the timing of what I've read, we would have saved $20,000. We would not have had to have gone through and created a 40-something page report. And that's how I feel at this point, and I think it's borne out by the information in this report and the timing of this report. So to me, it's a good lesson. Bad lesson, I will say again.
I'll echo that. It's for any department. If you know, if someone approaches the board, I would ask the board to have that, refer them back to me or whoever else might be the appropriate party, and I'll address the issues, and then make the board aware if you need to be about the results and the consequences of whatever the issue was.
It was a little, Mr. Chairman, it was a little strange, to say the least. And without going into any detail, that's why I said, give it to the man. He's the appointing authority, period. And that's what I did.
Well, I think in this case, and Mr. Dugevich isn't here, but I think if you and Mr. Dugevich had told Sergeant Ralph in this case to follow his chain of command, it might not have gotten to where it ended up. Based on the timelines of what's in here, and I don't want to get into any of the details too, but yes, it's important if there's an issue that someone comes to me and they say, oh, I have this problem, and I've had this happen in town. I direct that person to their boss. And I'm just using this example. In this example, the sergeant goes to lieutenant would go, now we have a deputy chief, and on up the line, and if they're not satisfied at any of those levels, they always have the right to go up to the next level. And where the buck stops here. So whether it's any department, pick a department. I agree completely, Doug, this is not something I'm pointing, or impugning the police department. It's any department if that happens. The code of conduct, I think, will remind us what not to do.
So moving forward, I can contact Billingsgate and just try to determine the likelihood of them being able to find the original sender of the email. Maybe they can give me a rough percentage estimate. Like if it's like 50% chance that we'll just find out that it came from some email address in Norway, we can determine whether it's worth pursuing that or not.
Great, thank you.
Right, so next item on the agenda, we have a letter for a reappointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate member from Michael Fafford.
So moved. Second.
Right, motion and second. Any discussion? If not, Jen, would you pull the board?
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Next item on the agenda, we have a letter for reappointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals from Daniel Canoyer.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Miller?
Yes.
Selectman Bork?
Yes.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Chairman Jolda?
Yes. Right, next item on the agenda is our review of Board of Selectmen policies and procedures. So we have.
So I went through and reviewed the policies. If you don't have your book, I have a couple of copies here, but I'll go through with the first one, the service of alcohol training. After reviewing that, I think the background of it is appropriate, just that we want all people to be tip certified who serve alcohol. And additionally, if you are working at a package store, that you should also be trained on that. I think that makes sense. I think we should probably delete the references to the certain company that provides the tip training. It could be any tip training. But besides that, I think that policy is appropriate.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just to say it maybe a little differently, we would want to have it said that it's a violation of their liquor license if they serve alcohol to a patron and the server is not tip certified. Getting to a specific incident that happened recently where the person was not tip certified and was serving alcohol. So I would like you to maybe come up with wording, if you could, to add that in there.
Specifically.
Right, that way there's no gray area and it's very clear that that's.
To require
What's
tip
required.
certified in order to
Serve.
serve or in a liquor store sell.
Yep. Yeah, so next we have the liquor law violations, which is the steps to, if someone has a violation, what we do with that. So my first comment is the first one is a verbal warning, or it said a suspension of a minimum of 3 days. I thought that was a little weird that you could get a verbal warning or a suspension, but it had to be at least 3 days. So I would suggest actually changing that to a maximum of 3 days, because it might be appropriate to have a suspension of 1 day.
Okay.
And again, through the chair, it may be appropriate not to give a suspension,
Yeah, and just the one, yeah.
depending
verbal
on whatever the
Uh,
circumstances.
Or verbal warning. And
Also-
a suspension.
Also, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, in the wording too, if we say starting on a Thursday, suppose they're closed on a Monday and/or a Tuesday, and we say a week or whatever it might be, a month, whatever the case might be in any particular case, that's almost like you're giving them a bonus day, sometime maybe 7 or whatever it is, business days.
Right.
Am I off base on that, or?
I would ask Mr. Miller, you may have been around, I'm not sure when this came up. Was it done to?
Saying I'm old.
No, this is actually only 2014,
Thank you.
not 1914. Only kidding. Was it done so that, because the weekend days are the busiest, and so a 3-day suspension would carry through?
No, and
Thursday?
I agree with that, but if we've gone over, say 3 consecutive days, as an example, if you had a week or longer on a suspension, and let's just say they're closed on a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever the day it might be, it's almost like you're giving them a bonus saying, well, we're not open anyway. See where I'm going with that?
Okay.
Yeah, so a couple options, we could change it to not Thursday and just have it wherever we want, or we could change it to business day, or
Business, I'm talking
Open.
about open for business
open for
days.
operation.
Right, yeah,
And you could
7
just-
so you want to talk like 7 operating days
Yeah.
for the business.
Right.
But I would think, Mr. Chair, you would, for the 3-day, you might want to say that it begins on a Thursday. Or begins on a Friday, whatever. it
Yeah,
is.
so-
Because the 3-day, you don't just want to allow Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if
Right.
that's
Right,
gonna,
those
if
are
they're
the
closed
slowest
on those
days,
days,
yeah,
are the
yeah.
slowest days.
Right.
So maybe just for the 3-day, you begin it on a Thursday.
Right, that one would make
Just a
sense.
thought.
Yeah, and I think this is an appropriate level and tiering of suspension. I don't know how the board feels. I mean, it makes it difficult when someone's here in front of you. It's nice to have a policy that's pretty rock solid, so
Right.
I think it's appropriate the way it is.
And with the change to the maximum.
Yep. So the next one, the special alcohol licenses and nonprofit special alcohol licenses. To be honest, when I read those, they're like exactly the same thing, so.
Good, good.
But if you have section 12 license, you can't get a special license. And it's the same policy for both of them. And so those are the alcohol ones. And I was actually thinking it might be appropriate just to put them all in one policy rather than have 4 different ones.
Codify them as one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, non-payment of taxes.
Just fine tune a couple of, if I may, Mr. Chairman, we'll just fine tune them.
Yeah, so
Put 'em
all
together
those
and-
changes we discussed tonight, I'll put into one policy, and at the next board, we can officially adopt and review it. And I'll ask their attorney for any input as well, just to make sure,
Yeah,
It's legal.
just to double check.
Through the chair, just that, so that's through 1 through 4.
Yeah.
And then
Correct.
number 5 is.
Yeah, number 5. So number 5 has some bearing on the licenses. So number 5 basically says if you owe the town any money for basically any reason,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get a license.
Not
Or a
just liquor
permit.
license,
Yeah,
right.
so it could apply to liquor licenses or building permits, anything
Right,
like that.
exactly.
So that's a very good policy to have, and it has been implemented. So on almost all of our applications, there is a box that has to be signed off by the collector's office to ensure that they do not owe us any money. And actually, when we get the permit view software fully up and running, it'll be a checkbox on the system, so it'll be even quicker. We can add that portion, a paragraph in the liquor policy saying you're not gonna get your liquor license unless you're fully paid as well.
right, that would make sense. That way they
Good.
can't come back and say, well, it wasn't in your approved policy.
With the non-payment of taxes policy, the MGL that it's based off of was updated in November. Previously, they had to have been delinquent for at least 12 months. Now there is no time requirement, so if they're a month late on taxes or whatever, won't issue it. Also,
So, through the chair on that, so they ultimately, and because I've been approached from a couple of businesses, that when you have to renew their liquor license, they wait until, and Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes they wait up until the witching hour in December to pick this up. We don't have anything in place that says it has to be paid by the middle of the year and by the end of the year, so that they're not getting zonked at the end of the year. Do you hear what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because all of a sudden, if someone doesn't pay any of their taxes at all year long, and they've gotten hit with all these fees, and then all of a sudden they have to pay $20,000 at the end of the year, and they can't get their license. Not to say that they shouldn't have paid,
yeah.
but we don't have a program in place for them to pay it half the year and half the year.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, when we send out the reminder letters, we can put on there that remind them that they need to be up to date on all their taxes, et cetera. Also, the new law allows payment plans to be created. So if they owe $20,000 and they want to make a good faith deposit of, say, 20%, we can allow that to happen, and as long as they're making the payments, we can issue them the license or permit.
Even if that's not in our policy.
Yeah, because that's what the
the
state
law.
law says. The state law also says that the Board of Selectmen can waive the requirement if someone wants to come to you. And so if there were an extraordinary hardship, they could come here and the board could waive that.
Could, Mr. Chairman, could we incorporate that into that policy, Mass General Law? Or is that MGL?
So the policy refers to the MGL. If you want, we could take more of the actual wording from the MGL and put it in the policy. Doesn't matter to me.
Well, the MGL overrides anyway.
Yeah, anyway, so.
Through the chair, did the actual sections now change, so the new sections, and so that, maybe you can just give us a copy if you don't mind, shoot us an email of the.
The copy, yeah, so it's still the same section.
It is, okay.
Chapter 40, section 57.
I can look at it.
Very good.
So Andrew, then the next meeting will add the next 5, I guess?
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah, so, yeah, the next meeting, we'll have that finalized for an official sign off by the board, and we'll start the discussion on the next 5 priorities are department head evaluations, transfer station, beach passes, beach fees, dogs at Memorial Beach, police videotaping, and gate hours at Memorial Beach. That'll be a fun meeting. And not that I'm pushing you to close, but a reminder, our next meeting is August 21st.
When?
That's a long time.
It's
It
a
is
long way,
time. It's
isn't
good,
it?
because we bumped this meeting up a week, so yeah, it's gonna
It's flying by.
Do we have any informational mail?
be. We do, just a few small ones. So, from the retirement system, Bob Craver, the town clerk, was elected to the retirement system board. We got a schedule from the elder bus, just notifying us of what their hours are. Jean covered this a little bit in her presentation tonight. And we have the minutes from the conservation committee. Sorry, I skipped one. The Danielson USDA Service Center is holding a Celebrating Agriculture Festival that the board is invited to on September 23rd from 9 to 3 p.m. at the Woodstock Fairgrounds in Woodstock, Connecticut. And we had a email from the National Center for Race Amity requesting us to hold a Race Amity Day on June 10th, 2018. So we'll try to remember that for next year.
Mr. Chairman, just a question for Doug. The elder bus reminds me of the questions we had with the Worcester bus. Has that, I can't remember if you were here when that was discussed, or it was early on. Has that been addressed where, I know there was complaints, concerns about Worcester stopping, Worcester Regional Transportation Authority
I think-
stopping some of their service or cutting back on service and affecting, if I remember, the elderly in particular at Golden Heights. Is that?
If I may, if I remember right, and I could be wrong, of course, but that was with the WRTA versus, Bus, I believe, is a separate entity. Am I
Yeah,
right?
Elderbus reminded me of the RTA.
Yeah, but, and we're talking about Route 42. That's the
Yes.
one that comes through on the different timing. And we've had people go to Boston, we've had people go to Worcester on this too, as far as that issue. You might be aware of, Mr. Administrator. I don't know if they got any recourse on it, that would make it more frequent to go through, say, Golden Heights or what have you. On the schedule.
So this is not familiar to me, so I don't think I'm saying it, but I can reach out to WRTA and see if they do have plans on adjusting their
Or
routes.
even the chair for the ADA, Anne Marie.
We can
She's the
stick
one that
them on.
attended all that stuff.
In the council for aging, Jean.
Yeah.
probably, or if you could touch base with.
So, to understand correctly, the goal is to have them have more frequent
Yes.
visits or to different areas? Or
No,
both?
they wanted, I think what, if I understand this right, it was a little bit more frequent, and, because the bus wasn't going down there for whatever reason, because they said, well, not too many people are using it, well, the timing, I guess, was terrible. And then if you didn't take advantage of it, you had to walk down, from, say, Slater Street, up a Slater Street, all the way down to either Rite Aid or Walgreens to catch the bus. And if it's in the winter and you have a problem getting around, that was a whole nother
Yeah.
ball of wax.
Right, and actually CMRPC has been pushing to connect, the Price Chopper Plaza area with actually the Mont-Free Insurance area and try to get some sort of service that connects that side of town to this side of town. So I can follow up with them to see if they've had any luck with that.
But that was the route number, 42,
42.
bus number 42.
Not Carrefour, not Carrefour.
Well, you got me here in 1914, we didn't even have a bus then.
If there's no other informational mail, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second, third.
Any discussion? If not, Jen, will you pull the board?
Selectman Miller?
I don't know, we're gonna say, I'll be nice to Jen. I'm only, thank you, Jen.
I don't know.
It's good to see you. That's okay, we're all a bunch of comedians here, sometime.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I said it 4 times. What's wrong? Wait a minute, let me turn up your hearing aid. There you go.
Thought you made to vote this one.
No,
Am I doing it right?
Just,
Yeah, no,
you're
Yes.
doing
No,
it
no,
fine. You're doing it
He's having
great.
a lot of
yes,
fun with
I'll
it.
say yes.
Yes.
I said, yes.
Yes. All right, we're adjourned.
I got the
Welcome
key.
to the.